I know we've actually known each other for a little bit, but I don't actually know your background. Like, can you tell us a little bit more about like how you got into this and like dance and your background on all the things?
Sure. Me personally, and I will totally make the long story super short. I started ballet specifically when I was 7. I grew up, my mom was a single mom and she was just looking for activities for us to kind of do together. So the first couple of years, she actually danced with me. She took like the adult classes at the studio and, I was in my kid classes and it just stuck. So since 7, I've just kept going. We moved around a little bit, but she was always able to find an opportunity for me to study. And I stuck with ballet until about middle school, where I went to a studio that had a couple of other things to offer. So actually, back then, there were a lot more classical classes taught in the studio system. So I took more like classical, like Giordano-based jazz. I took more classical modern, like Graham-based modern or Horton-based modern. They were like actually in our classes, which is something that you don't quite see as much these days. So I was really lucky back then.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, I continued to dance all the way through high school. At the point where I had to make a decision whether to pursue dance for a career or pursue something else, dance was very different back then. It wasn't as mainstream. It wasn't as accessible. So that kind of made the pool of opportunities a lot smaller. And I love dance, but I kind of knew I didn't want it to be like completely my career. And I knew I loved things with the body. So I got my bachelor's in exercise science. I did a little bit of jobs here and there. And actually, before I went to PT school is where I spent a couple of years at, shout out to Jeté Dancewear in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I worked there and managed the store for a couple of years. And that's where I got my experience in Pointe shoe fitting. So that's where I fell in love with like all the shoes, all the fittings, all the things. And it has stuck with me forever.
Where did you grow up then?
I grew up in Virginia.
Okay.
I'm from Virginia.
Okay. And what city is that?
Norfolk and Virginia Beach. Like if you know like the Hampton Roads, like Virginia Beach, Norfolk area. That's where. Let's see. Shout out to a lot of people know like Denise Wall, Dance Energy, and like Travis Wall and all of them. Like that's the same area that I'm from as well.
Yeah.
So went to PT school in 2008, and by that time I knew I wanted to continue to blend my dance teaching and dance training knowledge with something body-wise and physical therapy and working with dancers in some way. So I went to Long Island University in Brooklyn. I studied and did some internships at the Harkness Center. I did some internships with Ailey and the PTs and their company, some other smaller companies in the city. I was always volunteering and observing anything and anybody who worked with dancers up there.
Yeah.
So graduated PT school, worked in outpatient physical therapy for a while, couldn't quite find traction to grow any type of work or following with dancers. So I kind of started just creating my own. I had an opportunity. One of my best friends was moving back to Phoenix because he's from Phoenix. I'd never been out here, but he was like, if you're trying to start a business working with dancers, go to Phoenix. There's dance everywhere. So I said, okay. And I moved to Phoenix in 2014. I started working. I got a job working at a local studio here. Shout out to LA Dance in Peoria, Arizona. They gave me my first dance teaching job out here. And then when the moms started hearing that I was a physical therapist and a dance teacher, they started just handing me their children. They were like, here is Mackenzie and her back hurts. So I started like renting studio space and working with dancers to help their injuries. That grew, and then it turned into a mom coming in saying, well, we have a studio at home. Can you come work with like Caitlin at our house? And then that grew. So I was going all over the city working with dancers and helping them. And there was one of me and too many people. So in 2018 was the first, like, I didn't even call it a clinic back then. I kind of just rented a space. And that was like 200 square feet. I did that for a couple of months, grew, moved into about 600 square feet in October of 2018. That continued to grow. And now I'm in 1,350 square feet. We have the picture that I showed you. We have our practice studio space in the front and the treatment room in the back. I'm sitting in my media office in the back. And now we're fully grown and continuing to expand. I just hired another performance coach who's going to start working with clients on their sessions. So we're just growing steadily. So
Yeah.
Pretty short. That's my journey.
Yeah. So, you know, what the sense that I get from you, like just from the short interactions that we had, like in person and everything, like you come off to me as such like this incredibly positive person who always are open to opportunities and like things like that. You really like inspire me, even just like being close to you and talking to you and everything. But I know that your demographic is very like not only as a African American, but also as a woman going through your life, you have been a significant minority in many of the places that you've been in. What was that journey like? And I know that you've given me just like the surface area, this is what I've been through, but digging deeper into like what that felt like being maybe being the only African American woman in your class or in school or whatever that is, like what does that feel like? Or did you notice, or did you try not to notice what was going on there?
I definitely noticed. So what's really interesting, I'm pretty sure my mom did this intentionally, but that first dance company that she and I.
Whoops. Can you repeat that one more time? I think our internet is kind of cutting in and out. Hang tight, you guys. Let's see if this is gonna come back here. If you can still hear me, I left the on. Oh, there you are. Perfect.
Am I here?
You're there.
So sorry, I remember the question. So I'm so sorry about that. So the ironic part is that first dance company that my mom and I signed up for together was actually Black owned, and it was an entire like Black ballet school in Norfolk, Virginia, which was so rare. So that my first exposure to dance and my first exposure to ballet was in a largely Black culture. So that was a very fortunate foundation. Everything after that was probably what you would expect. As I continued with ballet, yes, I was pretty much the only Black going through all my classes. If I wasn't the only Black, I was probably the darkest Black. So I definitely had the experience with like really like coloring my straps. I had to color my flower straps for like Nutcracker because everybody's had to be nude. So mine had to be like extra, extra dark, which there's always a silver lining. Mine was always the easiest to find on the costume rack. I never had to search for names. So that was pretty cool. Same thing with like Pointe shoes when they would order our Pointe shoes and things like that. Once I turned in like my spray color, like mine was always the easiest to find because they were always the darkest, but there was always, you know, the extra hair pieces and things like that that everybody kind of talks about and experiences. Yeah, I definitely had all of that throughout my life. Even in my PT training, I was one of the very few Blacks in my PT class. In high school, I went to a pretty like middle to upper middle class high school that had, you know, a little bit better education system. And yeah, we were a minority there too. So I've always grew up in kind of like that minority mentality, kind of like proportion wise in terms of like the people around me. I think it's really funny. I'm about to, I can't believe I'm about to tell people how old I am. Should I tell people how old I am? So it is. It's just a number. So I'm actually going to be 41 in 2 weeks. And people, it surprises people because I tend to look a little bit younger than I actually am. But the reason that I bring that up is because my mother actually grew up in the height of the civil rights movement. So in terms of how I was raised and my mentality of growing up as a young Black woman, She was always encouraging. She was always telling me, like, I'm always going to have to work harder. I'm always going to have to give 120% because other people are only going to have to give 100% just to be seen as equal. I'm really going to have, I'm really going to have to try hard to make sure that I build up a tough skin because people are not going to expect too much of me. They're not going to expect me to be smart or have an opinion because those are the things that she experienced. It was a blessing just for her and her sisters to go to college. That was something like Black people were barely getting into higher education when she was just getting that opportunity. So the importance of going and getting an education, getting an advanced degree, those were things that were really important to her. And therefore they became very important to me. I think as I grew and as I kind of developed my own perspective, I've kind of tried to embody a little bit more to be a little bit more compassionate to everybody, to still know what I'm about and still know that I am intelligent, that I am beautiful, that I have a voice and something to offer, but other people can too. And if I just keep an open heart to helping everybody, ultimately I'll be okay. If my 120% is just to give to everybody, to help everybody, instead of just to prove that I'm good enough, that's ultimately where I want to be now. Where I was younger, and I think the mentality of being raised was work that 120% to prove that you're good enough. And now I'm starting to discover that I'm choosing to work 120% because that's what I know I'm capable of, and that's what I just want to give to the world. I don't really care what everybody else thinks, per se. And some people are put off by that. Some people feel threatened by that, and some people embrace it, and that's great. So there's definitely been a shift in my mentality of, how are people going to look at me? There are still things every once in a while, new situations where I'm just like, are people going to, give me an opportunity, or are they going to kind of not expect anything of me because of the color of my skin, because I'm a Black female? Like when I opened this business, I was just like, are people even going to come to me? Again, and I'm being 100% truthful. I've gotten the kind of like looking a little bit younger than I am all my life. So when I started my business, there was a big part of me that started out thinking like, are people going to want to send their kids to this 20 something looking Black girl? Like, what does she know? And I kind of had to work through that and say, one, I'm not 20 something. And two, I know a lot. I have a lot to offer, and I'm offering it to you, and you have the choice whether or not you like to take what I'm offering. And so keeping that mentality at the forefront of my mind has continued to make me more successful at a faster rate than being afraid of being good enough.
There's this like quiet, calm confidence that's so warm that emanates from you. And I think that's such an incredible thing because you really went through going through being a dancer to a PT student to a teacher to opening up a business, being a business owner, essentially. You went through all of the different phases in your life, and you had to experience that as a Black woman, and always keeping in mind the stereotypes of other people, and to even have that in the back of your mind constantly, where it's like, what the other person is thinking about you, and you have to almost overcompensate for that.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, I think people sometimes overshoot, where I do that same thing where I definitely overshot whenever I felt like there was some kind of prejudice against me. And then I end up, going too far. But you found this beautiful middle ground where you are able to still be inspiring and being true to yourself. And I think that's something that is so difficult to teach. And we all go through our own prejudice and our own, we all have our, and obviously a lot of demographics have it much worse than others.
Mm-hmm.
But we kind of have to figure out how to just be true to ourselves and be confident in our own skin. And if you were to, give like your niece or your daughter or your babies that you treat
Mm-hmm.
advice on how to achieve that type of confidence, regardless of what other people, other people thinking about you, like how would you achieve that? What would you tell them?
It's really funny. Like, you asked me the question and it came right to me. It would be, don't be afraid to love yourself.
Mm.
Because like, it's really funny. Like, that's kind of what it all kind of, that sums it up for me. I was afraid to accept kind of how awesome I am. There's a difference between perfection and awesome. I'm not perfect by like, girl, not perfect at all, but I've got skills. Like, I know things. I help people.
Oh,
Like, and just owning that. And I'm committed to learning more. I'm committed to like making mistakes and figuring it out and just embracing all of that. I think that's step one, not being afraid to like know that you have that capability and like know your awesomeness and be committed to like growing that awesomeness like all the time with the people that you meet, and spreading that awesomeness is number two, like empowering others to like embrace their own, because we're all, that's like the one thing that I think kind of like unites us. We're all afraid of something, and a lot of it has to do with something that we fear about ourselves. So being and embracing more of my own awesomeness and being able to empower, that's a lot of talk that I do with like a lot of my younger clients. Sometimes it's kind of hidden in like a muscle exercise, in some ways, but a lot of it is like, you can do this. Like, what are you really hiding behind? Like, what's the real thing that's holding you back? And just guiding a lot of my clients to just tap into doing all that they know that they can do. And I'll meet you for the rest of the way. Like, I'm committed to helping you figure out the rest, but tap in and do what you know. Like, tap into your awesomeness. I think that would be thing number one. And I think thing number two is, I'm Christian, and like my fundamental Christian belief is just like love and compassion, because having love and compassion for everybody breeds patience for them, patience for yourself. That is a big lesson that I've probably really embraced and learned. Like, I would say honestly, like in the last 2 years, I've really taken a step back in both of those pieces of advice. I've taken a step back and embraced my awesomeness, and I've taken a step back and have been just consciously more aware of being compassionate and loving to other people. When other people send what we think is bad energy towards us, they're mad at us or we did something wrong. A lot of times it's something that is in them, like they're hurting for some reason, they're frustrated for something else, and it's coming out as negative energy to you. And the more that I embrace that and understand that, the more I don't take it personally, and the more it allows me to see through to what they're really struggling with. And if I can help with that, then I offer my help. So I think those would be like the top two things in terms of like advice. It would be embrace your awesomeness and have love and compassion for everybody, including yourself, I guess.
I think that's, it's like one of the greatest response you can give. If you approach anything in life that way, or any kind of difficulty, I think you can almost get through anything.
Mm-hmm.
So delving deeper into like the more uncomfortable subjects, like how are you viewing this entire Black Lives Matter and George Floyd situation as a Black woman, as someone who's a professional, like from your specific perspective, even as a dancer, like how are you digesting the situation?
If you've reached out to me, or if like you follow my social media, you saw last week I posted like I needed a couple of days. It hit me hard in an unexpected way. The first thing that I had to do was admit that it was okay to feel scared and upset, because I've been very fortunate. My family has been very fortunate and blessed that like the racial encounters and the racial tension that we have experienced has not been severely detrimental. there hasn't been anything like really horrible. Like nobody in our family has like, you know, died or, you know, been significantly like injured, you know, in a hate crime or anything like that. And part of me felt really conflicted because I felt like I didn't have a right to feel bad with everything that was going on because nothing really bad has happened to me. Mm-hmm. So why do I feel so sad? Or why do I feel so upset? But the point is that you identify with something that could happen, or you identify with the fact that it is somebody's brother or somebody's son. You know, I have brothers. It could have been them. So the first thing that, in terms of me dealing and acknowledging, was that I had to like tell myself it's okay to feel the way that I feel, even though I have not directly experienced something quite that bad. So that was thing number one. Thing number two was figuring out what I personally can do about it. Like the protests and things that have been going on in Phoenix, from what I see and what I gather, most of them have appeared to be pretty peaceful. But I always had this underlying current of like nervousness for me personally and my personal safety. I don't have a whole lot of family. I actually don't have like blood relatives out here. I have a wonderful family and support group otherwise, so I'm not discounting them because I love them. But I had a concern about like going out and physically like being active and protesting, and then I felt bad about that. Like, shouldn't everybody want to protest? You know, why don't I want to protest? That must mean something's wrong with me. Like, and I had to like work through that and be like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, the people contribute in different ways, or people communicate and can be active in different ways. And we need people to be different or be active in different ways in order to bring awareness to this situation. So I started looking and thinking about, how can I be more effective, or how can I still be effective and still take action if it's not just protesting? Because it seems like, you know, in the media, all we're seeing is protest, protest, protest. So that's what everybody's doing. Yeah. So if I'm not doing that, what am I doing? So I took some time to think about, what can I do? So, you know, I've signed petitions, I've donated personally, but what really ended up empowering me is that I realized that I am a Black female business owner.
Amen.
And probably I really resonated with, probably the single most thing and effective and powerful thing that I can do is stay in business.
That's right.
And be here and exist and move my business forward. And so when I thought I was going to have to like shut down the clinic and cancel some clients for a couple of days because I was in my mood, I immediately got up and I'm like, no, like, there's power in the fact that I'm still here. There's power in the fact that, you know, I'm working with people on the other side of the world and consulting with them and educating them and giving them insight to help their dancers and improve their teaching skills. I have a whole other side business that works with fitness and nutrition that has nothing to do with dancers, that is growing and taking off. And so people are wanting to know, especially now with COVID and everything going on, people are wanting to know about their immune system health, which is another specialty of mine. So I'm coaching just regular non-dance people about building a stronger immune system, eating better, what exercises are more appropriate for them. So my action and my response is to thrive and to keep going and to empower others to live their best lives and to build the biggest and best legacy from AZ Dance Med and from my other business opportunities as I possibly can. And once I kind of tapped into that, I was like, yeah, that's how I do it. That's my big, like, stick it to the movement. Like, I'm here. We're expanding. We're about to open up, you know, start growing in a facility in California. We're already looking into expanding our certification worldwide. Like, it's, so yeah, that's my answer to Black Lives Matter. Black businesses matter, and this is one of them, and we're taking over. Sorry.
There's
Sorry,
so
not sorry.
Oh, there's just so many things that you said that I absolutely love. And I think there is this sense of guilt that everyone is facing on their own, in their own way, regardless of who they are. Like, are we doing enough? Am I, doing enough? Like, everything is just like so guilt ridden. But we all can do something very individual and specific to our demographic. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like you specifically as a Black female woman, this is the greatest thing that you could do, is to change perspective, inspire the next generation, to speak and spread love in your way. Like, and it's so inspiring and so incredible. And I felt almost the same way about all of the women's marches as well, not to bring in a different issue as well, but I was working when the women's march was happening. I was actually in Arizona fitting at YGP. And I was thinking, I was like, I feel so guilty that I'm not participating in something like this. But I'm like, but as a woman, the greatest thing that I personally, Josephine Lee, can do, as you can, Dr. Alexis Sams, is to move this forward as, this is the best we are doing. This is the greatest thing that we can do. So I love that response so much. I love the positive attitude. I love the confidence that just exudes from you. There's so many things. And one of the things that you said earlier about how you felt guilty because something significantly bad hasn't happened to your family. Even that mentality is so foreign to a lot of people that, like, oh, you feel like you're lucky that you didn't have these terrible things happen to you, while most of us, we don't even think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Not something that crosses our mind. So even that, to be able to live your entire life this way, how you have to think about other people's perspective of you. You have to think about how lucky you are that something terrible hasn't happened to your family. Just even those everyday thoughts that enter your mind as a Black woman is something that holds a lot of people back, because all of these things add up. But you somehow managed a way to break through all of that negativity, or all of those perspectives and all of those perceptions that are laid on you layer by layer. And you are just kind of this phenomenon of, like, moving things along. And I don't know if it's your mom, if it's your family, if it's God, if it's Christianity. I don't know if it's a combination of all of these, but if we can jar that up and sell it to people, I think everyone can kind of benefit from it. It's just an amazing opportunity. Now, well, I love the way that you responded to that. But moving more towards the dance industry, when you were growing up, you said if I wasn't the only Black woman, I was the darkest Black woman. So I had to color my pointe shoes. And now this is a very big conversation that's happening in the dance world today. Capizio, Block, Nikolai Grishko, all of these companies are now responding to not having enough colors for pointe shoes.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously grew up dancing on pointe, and you had to color your shoes. What was your thoughts on those? Like, because you had to go an extra step to make that match your skin tone. Like, how was that? Something that you noticed? Was something that you decided not to notice? What was your attitude towards that?
Um, I'm gonna be 100% completely honest. Yes, it's like you notice it, but for me personally, that wasn't a point of contention for me, to be
Mm-hmm.
completely honest. I'll put it this way. I will put it this way. Even though I was the darkest, and even though, like, I said, like, it was the easiest for me to find my peer, like when they were getting like shipped in and sprayed for us and stuff like that, everybody else still had to spray theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, they still had to match flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I grew up and you probably know some of these brands. Remember when like Capezio was like Pepto-Bismol pink? Remember when Chacots were like that weird orange look? Like, unless you're
Yes.
a Oompa Loompa, that's not your skin color either.
Yeah, it's true.
So that particular isolated issue about shoe coloring did not, like I said, it wasn't my biggest point of contention. It wasn't my hugest issue. Even the strap coloring wasn't my hugest issue. You want to know why? Because all of our straps were like elastic white, like white.
Yeah.
So everybody had to color theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So even like now, if you look at the contemporary ballet, regardless of your background, like they're still coloring their shoes flesh. So again, it's not that, personally for me, is not my biggest point of contention. I like the fact that I can get a shade that actually matches my color. Like when I was growing up and we had to color our shoes, I used the same foundation that I put on my face. So I liked the fact that I could choose my own shade and really made sure that it matches. Again, this is solely my personal opinion. Like the color rainbow between like you and me is so vast, and like I feel bad for Block. You gonna try to make all those shades? Like that's a lot of shades.
It is.
If you're either gonna try to make every single shade that you can create or think of, or you're gonna have 5, and I'm still not gonna fit into it.
Right.
So again, that's kind of my stance. I liked the fact of being able to find my custom and make my custom shades. I do think now the flip side of that is, I do think maybe there's an opportunity to maybe create more products for that customization. Like makeup lines are coming out with like more inclusive shade lines. Maybe from a business perspective, maybe that's at a lower price point and you can create more shades to appeal to different skin tones. Maybe that might be something to look into. That's my history and my perspective. Me personally, if I was getting, Pointe shoes and getting them colored, I would probably look more for that than an actual shoe that's going to match my tone. So that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really fair, and even from someone who is in the point shoe world completely, a lot of point shoes come in different shades, and like the reason why ballet pink exists is because that was, when ballet was created, it is very predominantly white elitist. It was for them, so pink was their closest to their skin tone, but they continued on with that throughout history, and we just never changed it. But you're right, there's so many different colors that it's almost, great to, I think it's, have you ever heard of a company called Pointe People?
No, I haven't.
So it's like a paint for point shoes. They create like an incredibly large like color shades, right? So you find any color and then like put it on your point shoe. You can do red, blue, you can do all of the different skin tones and everything. And I think that is actually a really great solution for all of this.
Like when I did my summer intensive at DTH, we were required to have flesh tone like tights and shoes. And that was actually my first experience. Like when I walked into their boutique and saw like all the colors, I was like, yeah.
Yes.
They went from your tone to my tone. They literally had a large array of colors. And I think, like I said, maybe making that a little bit more accessible to the dance community, I think that might actually be more inclusive of different shades. And that might be, I think, an easier way to embrace, the color spectrum of dance.
Yes, and I think that's very interesting because even being a point shoe fitter for the past 15 years, I am almost all dealing with ballerinas, right? And like, contemporary too, but mostly ballerinas. The percentage of Black dancers going on point is very small. to everyone else. Now there's more Asians, like the past 10 years or so. So if we were to make this more diverse and make this more inclusive, how could we change that, like from a grassroots standpoint, to make it more inclusive, to have more people join? What do you think that initiative would look like?
Like making like ballet more accessible to the Black community?
Yes. I mean, yes, like your studio is like a perfect example. You grew up in that platform where, you know, it was Black owned and it was inclusive and wonderful and diverse. And like
Yeah,
how
I honestly don't know how the heck that happened, but it was a blessing.
that is a big thing too.
Yeah. You know, we were just having this conversation earlier today. I'm not afraid to say I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. Do I think it's an important question to consider? Definitely. I'm not exactly sure. I kind of go back to what I can do.
Yeah.
And being here is what I can do.
Yeah.
You know, there really actually aren't a whole lot of Black people in the Phoenix area, but you know, me partnering with more companies that reach out, you know, maybe one day I'll do something grand with ALE or DTH. That'd be great. Brown Girls Do Ballet, just other initiatives. There are lots of groups out there who want to empower Black girls and boys.
Yes.
To, like Black Boys Dance, like that whole movement. There's a lot of opportunity, and I would definitely be open to, even as a young business owner, I've only been in business for about 5 years, but I'd be more than happy to have more conversations about what we can do, going into more communities and exposing kids to dance, exposing kids to dance and kids to ballet. I think is where it can definitely start. But yeah, I don't necessarily have a 100% great idea for that right now, but I'd be more than happy to sit and have that discussion and brainstorm and figure something out.
Yeah. And I think it's not just a conversation about Black ballerinas.
I agree.
Yeah, the culture of ballet itself, you mentioned boys, that's a whole nother topic,
Mm-hmm.
but ballet is very stuck in the past in a lot of ways, not just the people that are participating in it, but think about all of the storylines that we see in the ballet world.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about race, it's not just about, you know, just a singular culture. It's about, you know, gender, it's about sexuality. All of those things are just so stuck in the past. So it is a very you see the same demographic over and over again in ballet, and the same story retold over and over again. So I'm just wondering if it's time to just kind of switch that dialogue a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
to fit a more inclusive group of people and to have, you know, give more access to that.
I think there definitely is, for a lot of different voices in a lot of different communities, like taking some of the traditions of ballet and putting it in a different voice. I will say it's not Black related, it's not race related, but that's one of the reasons that I loved Matthew Bourne's Swan Lake. If you've ever seen that,
Yeah, I
love it.
oh my,
Love.
I walked in there not knowing what I thought I was just going in to watch Swan Lake. I had no idea that was going to be confrontational.
Yes, and I just really like the fact that I just loved it, but I just really wholeheartedly appreciated just a different voice telling the same story.
Yes.
And finding people, and finding opportunities to tell the same stories in different voices, or to create new stories. I think in a lot of ways ballet does need an elevation to a new level. I think people are very afraid of that because they're afraid of like letting go of history and like letting go of tradition. But all tradition really is something that's just happened for a long time. So who's to say we can't start something else that's going to happen for a long time?
Yes, I
Cool.
yeah, I think there's an importance to hold on to certain things and then let go of others that don't make sense anymore. And
Mhm.
like that's a conversation that needs to continue to happen in dance. And I think because it's such a classical form and we embrace tradition so much, there's a lot of things that get left behind that we don't have access to.
Mhm.
You know, dance PT, like in the dance medical world or the Pointe world, a lot of things are still being left behind because we're in such a traditional, you know, culture. So I think even having that conversation is really helpful, which is the entire point of these turning point talks.
Literally. I'm like, if we can have elastic ribbons, come on, people, we can have a different story. We can
Yes.
have new ballet. Let's,
Exactly.
let's just be honest.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing. And I just love all of your approach in your entire life, how you persevered through a lot of things. And sometimes I think you choose to tell your story a certain way, even to yourself, so that it has a positive spin to it. Like I
Mhm.
think you maybe do that unconsciously now, but you definitely do that. You retell your story in a way that benefits you so that you can continue to move on with your life in a
Mhm.
positive, beautiful way. Even just saying like, you know, what's great about being the darkest person in my ballet studio can find my costume. You know, that's your story, you
Mhm.
know? Instead of like, yeah. And I think that's so important to do. And it's such a difficult skill to learn, but everyone can do it if they just keep doing that.
Mhm.
I think while it is very important for us to continue to talk about prejudice and we need to talk more openly about being more diverse, it is also important to talk about people like you who are your greatest testimony is being there, your greatest contribution to this entire conversation is you doing you.
and and working towards me doing me unapologetically. And that's an everyday commitment. So like for anybody who's watching, whether you watch it on the replay or whether you're with us live now, I definitely want to say um, every everything that I'm saying and everything that I'm telling you is totally 100% me and 100% authentic. However, it has not been without the tears and the what ifs and the second guessing and the self doubt and the low self esteem and the mistrust of people from other races. Like I used to be very like in the mentality of that I have to give the 100% just to prove I'm equal enough. I had this kind of prejudice. It was a prejudice, yeah, a prejudgment that that white person over there is automatically not going to want to interact with me or automatically think that I'm a thug. And not everybody's like that. And I have to be open and compassionate and loving to let people show me who they are. So I wanted people to give me the opportunity to show them who I am, and I needed to learn that I need to do the same thing in return. So there are a lot of things in terms of like this whole Black Lives Matter movement, in terms of open conversation and communication, where there has to be listening and there has to be openness and willingness and forgiveness both ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to go both ways in a lot of ways. I can't think of another word, but in a lot of instances,
Yeah.
there has to be an exchange in order for things to ultimately move forward.
Yeah.
So I don't want anybody to take my mentality now and think that I was like I just came out the womb this way. No, like there's a lot of work and a lot of self-reflection and a lot of consistent thought process. I'm still working on it now. Like in terms like I have a business coach, I have a mindset coach, I have a financial coach. Like I'm always working on a better me in multiple ways. So it's an everyday choice for the mentality that you're talking about. I choose every day to think as positively as I can, to try the hardest. We're not perfect, but don't get it twisted. It took a lot of work. So I just wanted to say that.
Yes, I mean the most difficult thing you can do is not is to stop the flow of anything. So so everything builds on each other. So it's like you just said, this beautiful example, like, oh, I this person might have a prejudice against me, but you're like you're gonna have a prejudice against having this person having a prejudice against you, and it building and building, and it becomes like this big snowball. But
Mhm,
at some you made a choice, that a difficult choice to stop that and go the other direction. And
mhm,
that resistance is something that's so powerful and so difficult for us to do, because our immediate reaction to certain things is to continue it. But then when you figure that out and stop that, that is probably the most productive thing you can do. So it is an incredible thing. I wish everyone to be as resilient and positive as you, and also to be able to take everything that you have, because even though we none of us have the same experiences, we all have at least a little bit of the same emotional reaction to certain.
mhm.
I can empathize you with, being different or having people have some sort of prejudice against me, regardless of if it's age or, job or whatever it might be. So to be a better empathizer, to spread more love,
Mhm.
embrace your awesomeness, all these things, is so wonderful. Thank you so much for coming today for this chat. You've been
No, thank you.
so much.
Thanks for inviting me. And like I adore you. So thank you so, so much for inviting me. And can't wait for us to get together. I know we're going to get together soon.
Oh yeah, we're gonna. I whenever I'm planning my trip to Arizona, I'll let you know. We'll do a little Pointe fitting party over
Yeah,
there.
definitely have to.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Can you tell our viewers where they can find you?
Sure. Our username for just about everything is AZDanceMed. So Facebook.com/AZDanceMed, Instagram.com/AZDanceMed. My email, if you want to reach out to me, is Dr. Alexis at azdancemed.com. And yeah, we're based out of Phoenix, Arizona. We help all things dance related and even not dance related. If you've got an issue and you've been told that nobody can do anything for you, call me. I can probably help you. I got you.
I love it. I love it. And we'll also tag you on everything so people can easily find you on there as well.
Thank
Um,
you so much.
oh, thank you. I love this. Let's chat soon, okay?
All right, you take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.